faced the shadow. You did the work. You healed the wounds. And now you feel empty. No drive. No spark. No motivation left. The worst part, you can't explain why. You should feel better. But instead, you're wondering if you broke something inside yourself. What if this isn't a failure? What if this silence is actually a sign your soul just stopped performing? There's something nobody tells you about shadow work. Something Carl Jung knew, but rarely spoke about directly. When you finish excavating your unconscious, when you've pulled up all the buried shame and unmet needs and childhood wounds, you don't just feel better. You feel different. Fundamentally, unsettlingly different. Jung once wrote, "The collapse of the persona is often mistaken for depression." He understood something most modern psychology misses entirely. When you've done deep inner work, when you've faced your shadow and integrated those rejected parts of yourself, your entire motivational system doesn't just shift, it disintegrates. And that disintegration isn't pathology, it's transformation. Think about it. For years, maybe decades, you were motivated by unconscious forces. The need to be loved, the fear of abandonment, the drive to prove your worth, the terror of not being enough. These weren't conscious choices. They were survival mechanisms running in the background, pushing you forward, keeping you busy, making you productive. But shadow work doesn't just heal these wounds. It exposes the entire machinery. Suddenly, you can see how much of your life was driven by fear, wearing the mask of ambition. How much of your motivation was actually just avoiding pain, dressed up as pursuing pleasure. When that machinery stops working, when those unconscious drivers are no longer driving you, you don't just lose motivation. You lose the only reasons you've ever had to be motivated. This is what Jung called the necessary dissolution before rebirth. But nobody prepares you for how quiet it feels in the space between who you were and who you're becoming. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's not her real name, but her story is completely real. Sarah spent 2 years in intensive therapy after a devastating breakup, revealed patterns she'd been carrying since childhood. She did the work. EMDR, inner child healing. Parts work, shadow integration. She faced everything. By the end of those 2 years, she was genuinely healed. The anxiety that had driven her for decades was gone. The need to please everyone had dissolved. The fear of being alone had transformed into genuine self-companionship. But when she tried to return to her career in marketing, something felt wrong. Not bad, wrong, just empty. The campaigns that used to excite her felt meaningless. The client meetings that once energized her left her feeling hollow. The promotions she'd been chasing for years suddenly seemed like elaborate distractions from something she couldn't name. "I used to wake up every morning with a fire in my belly," she told me. Even if it was anxiety, even if it was fear, it was fuel. Now I wake up and feel nothing, like I'm waiting for instructions from a voice that isn't speaking. This is what Jung called the Negrado phase of psychological alchemy. The necessary darkness, the void, the dissolution that must happen before new life can emerge. In medieval alchemy, Negreo was the blackening, the death of the old form before any transformation could begin. But here's what makes this so confusing in our culture. We've been taught that healing should feel good, that growth should be linear, that progress should be measurable. We expect shadow work to work like taking medicine. You feel sick. You take the pill. You feel better. Instead, shadow work often works like surgery. The procedure is successful, but the recovery is long, strange, and nothing like what you expected. During our cake, this phase, you might find yourself unable to care about things that used to matter deeply. Career goals that once seemed vital now feel arbitrary. Relationships that once excited you might feel performative. Hobbies that used to bring joy might feel forced. This isn't depression in the clinical sense. You're not hopeless or worthless. You're not unable to function. You're just not motivated by the same things anymore. And without those familiar carrots and sticks, you don't know how to move forward. Jung understood this as a sign that your psyche is undergoing a fundamental reorganization. The ego, your sense of separate self, is no longer in the driver's seat, but the self, your deeper, more authentic essence, hasn't fully emerged yet. You're in the in-between space, the liminal realm, the void that exists between one way of being and another. Pause here and take a breath. Is this what you've been carrying all along? This sense that you should feel more motivated, more driven, more alive than you do. The truth is, your psyche is protecting you from going backward. It's refusing to let you re-engage with motivations that were never truly yours to begin with. But it hasn't yet revealed what will motivate you moving forward. This isn't laziness. This isn't failure. This isn't even stagnation. This is your soul taking a sacred pause before the next phase of your becoming. In traditional cultures, this void was honored as a necessary part of spiritual development. Vision quests, dark nights of the soul, initiation rites, all of these recognize that growth often requires a period of dissolution, of not knowing, of emptiness. But we live in a culture that pathologizes stillness, that medicates mystery, that tries to fix what might not be broken at all. Jung warned that if we try to skip this phase, if we rush back into action before the transformation is complete, we risk building a new life on the same old foundations. We might look different on the outside, but we'll be running the same unconscious programs that brought us to the need for shadow work in the first place. Here is a truth few are prepared to accept. The silence you're experiencing is not the collapse. It is the sacred stillness that precedes transformation. Every ounce of motivation you once felt rooted in fear, social performance, the need to prove your worth, or to outrun your pain is fading. Not because you failed, but because you've evolved beyond the illusion that once fueled you. Your soul has grown silent, not in defeat, but in refusal to move from anything less than truth. Jung saw this moment clearly. You are not failing, he said. You are in between. Pause and ask yourself, what did motivation once mean to you? Look closely. How much of it was desperation dressed as discipline? How much was love begged for through achievement? How much of your energy was really just fear, cleverly disguised in productivity? When you begin the journey of shadow work, when you confront the unconscious forces steering your life, something radical occurs. You do not merely heal wounds, you dissolve the belief that your worth depends on performance. You stop trying to earn love through striving. You cease to believe that output equals value. And when those illusions fall, so too does the motivation they fed. This is what Jung called the death of the persona. That mask you wore to belong, to be praised. To survive, it is crumbling. And when it falls away, the distance between who you are and who you've been pretending to be becomes undeniable. The architecture of your life was built around this mask. Your career, your relationships, your sense of purpose. All of it was constructed to sustain a false self. So when the performance ends, what remains? Emptiness, but not the kind that signals something is missing. It is the emptiness that makes space for something real to enter. David, a successful architect, walked this path. After years of inner work, he found himself unable to return to the life he once inhabited with such certainty. The work, the hustle, the goals, all of it felt like wearing a costume stitched from someone else's script. I used to thrive on the grind. He told me. 60-hour weeks, long-term plans, relentless ambition. It all made sense. Now, I look at those same dreams and feel nothing. He feared depression. He sought answers in therapy, in medicine. But what he was experiencing wasn't an illness. It was the natural consequence of healing. His previous motivations proving his worth to a father, avoiding shame, seeking applause were no longer necessary, and the authentic drive that would replace them had not yet arrived. This is the threshold Jung spoke of, the moment between masks, between selves, between lives. It is a sacred disorientation. Fear-based motivation is powerful. It can push you past limits, drive you to achievement, fuel your rise in the eyes of others. But it is also finite. Eventually, you either burn out or awaken. And when fear is no longer welcome at the helm, you must wait for something deeper to emerge. That waiting is not a void to fear, but a womb of becoming. The self, Jung believed, does not yell. It whispers. It does not impose. It invites. And if your life is filled with noise, with anxiety, urgency, performance, you will not hear the invitation. You will miss the voice of your becoming. This is why silence matters. This is why the void is holy. It is not the absence of movement. It is the clearing before alignment. It is not failure. It is the soul's preparation. And then, one day, something stirs. David didn't force it. He didn't strategize. He walked. Slowly, quietly, no phone, no destination, just presence. On one such walk, an old building caught his eye, a structure he had passed countless times without noticing. But this time, he saw it, time-worn, weathered, silent. And yet, it spoke. He didn't ask what it meant. He simply returned, again and again, not to build or design, but to witness, to listen, to feel. He began sketching not blueprints, but sensations, echoes of the building's memory, what it wanted to become, what it had always longed to say. No agenda, no deadlines, just dialogue with something sacred. And from that quiet connection, a vision began to emerge. A restoration project unlike anything he had ever attempted. One rooted not in ambition, but reverence. Not in performance, but in presence. What emerged was not just a new project. It was a new life. David did not regain his old fire. He discovered a new flame, one that burned quietly, steadily, and could not be extinguished by fear or expectation. This is how the true self speaks. It does not rush. It resonates. It calls not with noise, but with knowing. And when you follow that call, you no longer chase life, you receive it. This is not about becoming passive. It is about becoming attuned. You begin to recognize the pull of truth. You follow curiosity, not as a tactic, but as a trail. You no longer create to be seen. You create because life within you insists on being expressed. Sarah's journey mirrored this awakening. A high-level marketing executive, praised and admired, yet haunted by a subtle ache. She came alive not in boardrooms, but in the laughter of children. And though she didn't yet have clarity, she followed the pull. Over 2 years, she transitioned not with grand gestures, but small, faithful steps, from marketing to teaching, from performance to presence, from pretending to remembering. And in doing so, she found not lesser success, but deeper truth. This is the moment most mistake for collapse, the loss of ambition, the stillness, the confusion. It feels like regression. but in truth, it is the beginning of integrity. You are not breaking down. You are shedding the scaffolding of a self built to survive, not to thrive. You are no longer performing. You are preparing. Jung warned that the road to individuation would often resemble a descent, a death before the rebirth, a void before the voice. But he also knew that only by walking into that unknown could one ever find the deeper order, the sacred pattern waiting beneath the noise. The new voice won't bark commands. It will offer questions. It won't race. It will resonate. David heard that resonance in a building. Sarah heard it in children. You will hear it too, if you dare to be still. So if you find yourself in that silent in-between, know this: you are not lost. You are being realigned. You are not lazy. You are listening. You are not broken. You are becoming. Take the walk. Sit in the stillness. Trust the pull. Follow the hum. Even if it makes no sense at first, even if no one understands. You are not here to perform for a world that has forgotten how to listen. You are here to remember what it means to live in tune with your soul. And when that remembering returns, when the hum rises again, you will know. You won't need motivation. You will feel the call, and it will not burn you out, because it will not come from fear. It will come from truth, from love, from you. If this message awakens something in you, share it. Let your story light the path for another. And if you long for more depth, more silence, more soul, subscribe to this channel. Because here, we don't chase identity, we remember it. Welcome to your unfolding. Welcome to Dark Wisdom.